Right, let's get into this discussion now. It's been a big highlight, really, for 2024 as we wrap up the year. South Africa just recently assuming the presidency of the G20. And, of course, conversations continuing around South Africa's role in the G20 and what it will mean for Africa. Organizations such as the Black Business Federation are calling for inclusive economic growth and policy reforms. To tell us more, we are joined by the Black Business Forum's CEO, Ntsikelelo Dlulane. Ntsikelelo, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, it is the Black Business Federation. Apologies for my error there. It's so good to have you with us. You know, I want to start with, I think at the beginning of this year, there was the expectation that South Africa could certainly be playing a bigger role in the G20. But now that we find ourselves firmly on the footing of the presidency of the G20, I want to talk a little bit about what kind of step forward you think this is for African geopolitics, in your view.
Thank you, Naledi. Good evening to you and good evening to your viewers. I think first and foremost, one must appreciate the strides that South Africa is making in the international front. It is a very encouraging move that we see every time when South Africa is involved on the international platforms. There's always positive outcomes. So the presidency of the Republic of South Africa right now then suggests that there is a move not only for South Africa but for the African continent, considering the fact that South Africa is the only country that is there from the African countries that is within the G20, and now the presidency is actually sitting with South Africa. So we are very much encouraged, and we actually want to encourage and applaud the government of South Africa, but further say that it is not only a presidency of South Africa, but it is the presidency of Africa and possibly a presidency of what we call the Global South, because these are the countries that need to be looked at, in line with what we are pushing for as far as the geopolitical positions that we have as a country.
Yeah, because, here's the reality of it. To the everyday South African, the everyday African, especially if you are someone who is in business, you run your small to medium enterprise, you certainly hear about the presidency of the G20 and you hope that there's opportunity for you. But is there really? So let's talk about whether or not this is viewed by small to medium enterprises as a platform for them as well.
It depends on what we do with these presidents in South Africa. We obviously, if you look at what has been engaged on the first meeting, an issue of inclusive growth was very much on the forefront of one of the targets that needs to be achieved. So I would like to think that approach on the very first meeting when this presidency was introduced was actually setting the tone. So it then remains to be seen as to whether or not are we literally doing lip service or we actually have intentions, and that will be demonstrated on the engagements that are going to take shape as we progress into this presidency. But there is an opportunity for us to do better and also make sure that the small to medium enterprises within the African continent, particularly in South Africa, would actually gain some benefit through this presidency.
But here's the reality of it, and obviously you can be optimistic about wanting to see those opportunities, but already as those discussions around what 2025 will look like for G20, a big issue about McKinsey and Bain, an issue that has been raised even by the president himself, saying that their very inclusivity or them being included into the B20 next year, very, very concerning. Especially when we look at Bain and McKinsey being big business, of course, also having faced recently a 2 billion rand fine for allegedly being involved in state capture. So are we, so far, moving in the right direction?
It is very concerning. I must say that, entities like those that we've mentioned, who are already, have gone through some serious, challenges within us, especially on the bad side of the law, are actually included. And as I've just said, as much as we are very optimistic of what this presidency means, but it also remains to be seen as to whether or not are we also going to make sure that the inclusion of the entities that are actually responsible for the development of SMEs in our country is actually done. We do have a lot of good initiatives in South Africa. We do have even departments like the Department of Small Business Development that is there, but we want to now see all these plans that are being put in place actually being brought to a level where they bear fruits for the for the small entities. And it is something that I think the country is really not paying as much attention as one would want to see. And if you consider the fact that we are probably close to 8%, on the contribution in terms of the informal economy to the GDP, and that same economy is about 42% contribution to employment, but we don't see a lot of effort that is being given. Instead, you're seeing these big companies that have been found to be on the wrong side of the law being included. So it is why we are saying that we are optimistic, but we're also very cautious because we want all the plans and all the rhetoric that is coming out to actually be implemented, and we see the physical implementation.
Why do you think that is? I mean, you talk about small businesses being such a big contributor to the GDP of our nation, and yet a sense that, we need to keep reminding, and asking for the inclusion of small to medium enterprises. Why are we still doing this?
I think we as a country are suffering from a very problematic sickness of having very, very good plans, but very, very bad on implementation. That is the biggest challenge that South Africa currently has and has always had over the past. We do have a lot of good plans. I can tell you, we probably are one of the best countries when it comes to planning for everyone and everything that has to do with the economy of South Africa, but the implementation is where we are having a problem. As a result, you see, you've got, there's a lot of literature that has been written. There's a lot of research. In the municipalities, local government, provincial and national government, there are plans that are put in place to make sure that these economies that I'm talking about, which is township and rural in the main, are actually being uplifted. But are we seeing results? Are we seeing tangible implementation of the plans that are there? And unfortunately, the answer is no.
I want to ask this issue because obviously as we wrap up the year as well, a lot of discussion around how we're doing with Spaza shops, the registration, the deadline obviously been moved. But is this entire process that we've went through from the food poisoning incidents all the way to calls being made for Spaza shops to register themselves, what is that doing to small to medium enterprises in the country?
Unfortunately, we are a country that is always reactive in nature. That's the unfortunate reality that South Africa has. This all started when the Spaza shops that are unfortunately owned by foreign nationals, allegedly, are the ones that are mainly responsible for the poisoning that has taken place. And in an effort to correct that, we have now brought a situation whereby even those that were actually handling some of the small outlets, like those that are handling food, are now having to actually go through a very rigorous application process. Unfortunately, it is what we are as South Africa. We always are reactive in nature. We do not want to implement the very good plans that we have. As a result of this, you are now finding out a gogo who has been selling food maybe outside their home, now having to deal with the issue of registration because they are handling food. All the aunties and the mamas that are on the ranks handling food, they are now having to deal with the issues of registration. And just a few hours ago, we're looking at some of the complaints that were issued by some of the black alliances that are especially in Gauteng, who are saying that one of the requirements is that you must provide an approved plan, and most of these operations are informal settlements. So this is where I'm saying most of these initiatives that we do as a reaction, not necessarily as a way of making sure that in us conducting our business, we do it in a manner that is in line with the law, which is why now we are facing a situation whereby there is a need for extension because they cannot comply with all that is needed in terms of that application, and that is unfortunate. The extension does suggest that there will be some time given, but I can almost guarantee you that not all of them will be catered for because some of the requirements are going to be a very big challenge for those operatives to be able to actually adhere to.
Okay, and just lastly, before I let you go, 2025 is coming, and the big G20 meeting also set to take place. And it's going to be an important year for South Africa and how it presents itself from an inclusivity point of view for the globe. I mean, what are the 5 tick box exercises that are going to get it right for us to say that we also, in this global discussion, are in support of small businesses?
I think it's a very good thing that we are the president. But I think I don't see the country, I mean South Africa, to start with the country before even go to our neighbors and the continent. I don't see a lot of engagement with the small businesses at all levels. I don't see, after the meeting that took place where the presidency was actually introduced, further engagements from the different entities of government, from the different organizations that are actually talking about this, this presidency. As a result of that, a lot of businesses would have possibly given positive contribution to some of the engagements that are going to take place in the coming year of 2025, where we'll be the president of the G20. They will end up being left outside, and as a result, the country will actually miss an opportunity from those that are directly involved in the small enterprise management to actually have a contribution, which will then actually fulfill one of the targets that was mentioned in the first meeting that took place, of inclusive growth, of making sure that there is capacity building, of making sure that the economy that we have in the country and the African continent is actually boosted by this presidency. So until we see those engagements at all levels, until we see those that are responsible with regards to this initiative and the presidency dealing with the issue of making sure that this information is distributed to everyone at every level, we will only have it as a good thing, but I don't think that it will have an impact at all.
All right, well, we leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I imagine we'll be having this chat again next year, Ntsikelelo, and we do appreciate your time. Ntsikelelo Dlulane there is the CEO of the Black Business Federation.